Okay, welcome everybody to the November 6th LF Decentralized Trust Technical Advisory Council meeting. As are all aware, you've all been on the call before, but just a reminder, two things that we have to abide by. The first is our antitrust policy. So we need to be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under any of the antitrust and competition laws across the world. The second thing is, while everybody is welcome here, we do need to abide by the code of conduct, which is linked in the agenda. Basically, we need to be respectful of others on the call and their opinions and ideas, and we should all get along just fine. For announcements today, we have the Dev Weekly Developer Newsletter that goes out each Friday. If you do have something that you would like to include in that newsletter, please do leave a comment on the link here that's in the agenda. For the second announcement, the voting period for the 2026 TAC term has begun. It does end at just before midnight UTC on November 14th. So if you're eligible to vote, please do visit the Helios voting link. You need to be logged into GitHub. It's a bit confusing because there's like a login, but then there's at the bottom something that says not logged in. And if you click that, then it will allow you to choose GitHub if you haven't already been logged into GitHub. So anyway, just a little note on how that all works. Let's see, the next one that we have is that on Wednesday, November 12th, so next Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, there is a workshop on cross-network interop with Hyperledger Cacti, and there is a registration link that is in the agenda. So if you're interested in that, please do register. The last official announcement that we have is that Maintainer Days registration is also open, and there is a link here in the agenda for you to register. It is free for all attendees, and registration for maintainers will also include a registration for the LFDT Member Summit that happens immediately after that on January 28th and 29th. So yeah, if you would like to participate in any of those things, please do click on those links. And are there other announcements that anybody has or would like to make today? Matthew.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks. I wondered if there was time later on the agenda just to do a quick update on the project, project consistency task force.
Yeah, it's actually in the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
So
Apologies.
no worries. We'll definitely get to that, but
Great.
good to hear that you have something available for that.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other announcements that anybody would have like to make? Okay. If not, then we'll move on to the quarterly reports. So we do have a number of quarterly reports that have come in, and a new quarterly report that showed up this week for the Web3J Q4 report. When I looked at these yesterday, I guess it was, when I put together the agenda, none of them had enough approvals for us to merge those. So if you haven't had a chance to review those, please do have a look and either provide comments or make your approval, and we can hopefully get those checked in shortly. Are there any comments on any of the reports that we should talk about? Okay. If not, then we do also have a number of overdue reports. So Arun, I think you were reaching out to folks on these overdue reports. Any updates from any of the projects?
No, Tracy, I haven't heard back.
Okay. So we'll keep reminding them and hopefully we'll see those coming in shortly. For upcoming reports, we do have the Solang report that is due this week, and then we also have the Firefly report that is due next week. So that's what we have for reports. For discussion items today, we have a couple of open PRs that I thought we could discuss and see if we could vote and get those checked in, or get some updates if we need to do some updates to those. And then also task force updates on the 2 task forces that we have currently in progress. So let's start with the first one. Jessica, this is something that you added for us to update the guides to remove LFX insight scores from the recommended tools. We have talked about this before. Looks like we've got 5 approvals on the PR itself, so it looks like we're pretty close to actually being happy with this, but wanted to see if there was anything that anybody would like to talk about before we potentially vote on this and merge it in.
Just for more information, I put a comment that part of the mentions of LFX are kind of historic, so I left them there. I think it's only one, but I believe it's a little bit historic, so I left it there.
Okay. And did you just want to show us what changes were made just to remind people?
Sure.
Thank you. So pretty minimal changes that are being made here. Specifically, as a reminder, we're removing the call out to use LFX Insights best practices score. A couple of reasons for that. One, they've changed since this was originally written, and so the scores that existed previously don't seem to exist anymore. And then secondly, LFX Insights provides not always accurate information, and so we wanted to remove that as a place for people to look when they're reviewing projects and checking out what sort of life cycle stage they should be in. And then the second piece of this is just changing LFX Insights to GitHub Insights as another place that people can take a look at. So I think that's really the big changes to this. Are there any comments, questions, feedback, changes that we should make to this before we go ahead and vote?
Or if we could get Enrique, Hendrik, Matthew, or Marcus to give it a check mark here in GitHub.
I can do that in a second.
Okay. So as soon as it has 6 checks, I'll merge it instead of having a formal vote.
A
Oh,
formal vote. That's
yeah.
fine.
Thank
there
you.
we go.
Perfect. All right, so I think we're good with that one. That was a quick and easy one. The TAC chair notes. So we did discuss this previously. We only do have one approval here. I did make one additional update this week. Just as I was putting together the agenda right here at the top, line 10, I think it is. Yeah, starting with line 9. So I just added this section on agenda creation and distribution. Like I said, as I was putting together the agenda, I thought, oh, I don't have anything on actually doing this step. So let me add that particular section, and just basically giving people some information on, that whoever that new TAC chair might be, information on how they would go about creating the TAC agenda, places they can look for potential agenda items, and then what they should do as far as adding that to our TAC website, and then how they go about distributing it. So 3 places to distribute, basically the PR, Discord, and then the mailing list, so that people can find the agenda regardless of where they look. So yeah, I think that's the only real change from the last time that we talked about this. So wanted to see if there's any other comments or or discussion that we should have on this before we think about checking it in. And I'm sure that you may have noticed, but I did not put my name in the hat for the TAC for next term. Um, I I will be stepping down as of the end of this term. So this is really the intention of this document is to help whoever the next person is. You know, obviously there'll be some sort of transition. I'll talk to whoever it is that's going to be taking on the roles of chair and vice chair. But yeah, just wanted to put this together so that people had that reference of the sorts of things that I've been working on for the last few years. Matthew?
Yeah, no, just thought I'd raise my hand to say I think it's really useful. I think often these things kind of get passed from person to person through word of mouth, or just people observing how things are done and not necessarily having something to refer to. So I just want to say thank you for putting it all together, and it looks very comprehensive and really clearly laid out. So no, yeah, mainly just to say I think it looks like it's going to be a really useful resource for the TAC.
Great.
And we can do the same thing here. If everyone on the call on GitHub can vote on this, we don't need to run a formal vote.
Could you put the link into the chat just for those of us who are scrambling?
There you go. And yeah, I'll miss you, Tracy. You've been an incredible force for good here, both at LF and Hyperledger and LF Decentralized Trust. So you know, fair winds and following seas.
All right, we're seeing the approvals come in, so that's good. We need a couple more. There we go. I think that's it. Okay, so then what we do have left for our discussion is some updates for the task force. The two task forces that we have put together. So we'll start with the contributor ladder task force, and then we'll do the project consistency task force. So Diane, do you want to bring us up to speed with what's been going on with the contributor ladder task force?
Yeah, can I share my screen so I can drive it that way?
Of course.
All right, do this and see if I can share. Here we go. Lots of things on my screen, and they're all LF related. So that's good. All right. Well, there's been some good progress from the contributor ladder task force, and I just sort of wanted to circle back a little bit and talk about what the goals were for it in terms of providing guidance for maintainers, contributors, and end users. And making sure that we had a central location to find all of the disparate pieces of great content that is out there across the LFDT and try and bring them into what I was originally calling and still calling a hub, similar to the other subsites that we have for governance and for mentorship in the underneath the repo for LFDT, and we've made some pretty good progress. There's still pieces and bits to be completed and reviews. A lot of the couple of things that I'm trying to get done in the next couple of days are or actually overnight, probably for tomorrow, is to really go through and make sure grammatically I have everything covered on the pages that are there. And I've done some outreach to some of the staff to take a look at the security and operations subpages. And I don't see anything in there yet, so it's still kind of in limbo, and I may take them off the main page until we get them done. The next real task is to go through and link to all the different templates that are out there and create a few checklists. My goal originally was to have this this initial release of the documentation site by mid-October. So I'm going to admit that we didn't quite make reality. Life got in the way and other work projects. So probably by the end of November, we should have something that is publishable. That may not have the security and operations pieces in there, which is guidance for maintainers on how to set that up, and the tools and things that we can do for those two areas. But other than that, I think we've done some really good work, and I just wanted to thank everybody, and Char, who's not here, has done some work around the mentorship, and the goal has always been not to is to be able to drive and link to other content, and create some basically good landing pages for people, whether they're end user and or contributors or maintainers, and make sure that they understand how they can get in and how to progress people through growing from being an end user or just a container to becoming a maintainer, and to help maintainers create a good, healthy projects. So I think we're getting there. There's always more we can do it, but I think with a soft launch around the end of November, I'd like to move it under the LFDT repo. So, but I'm not quite sure where, and that's a conversation I'd like to have with all of you today, is where it should live outside of, because we're developing it and doing all the code and updates on the LFDT repo. But I think, like the governance and the mentorship and other subsites that we've created and hub-like things, it probably should be under the LFDT once we get there. And then while I may not be going to Maintainer Days or Member Summit, I'd like to have like sort of an official launch or workshopping session there with the maintainers and participants there, to make sure that, you know, we've covered all of the things that they think are important, and incorporate that feedback and iterate that. So that's sort of where we're at right now. You can take a look at it. I put the links here. I'm not going to walk through the whole site, but that's kind of where we're going. I'm trying to not be overly verbose, which is what I usually am when I do these things. So if I could ask all of the TAC members to take a look at it over the weekend, maybe in your spare time while you're drinking coffee on a Saturday morning. And if you find any issues or grammatical stuff or broken links, or as you can see on this main page, there's like a few little run-on sentences here. There are things like that. Feel free to put an issue in or actually go right in and fix it. And that would be where we're at right now. So I'm pretty happy with it as a good basis for starting to do outreach to the different projects. So I think from the contributor ladder task force, this was kind of a starting point to coalesce all of the materials and the guidance. But I think we have much more to do after this site is done. This is just sort of the documentation, is also to work with the different maintainers and and projects to see what their best practices are, see where we can help them create things, and give them guidance on adopters, and basically become sort of a little strategic planning group for making sure people grow more contributors, more maintainers, and see how we can incorporate our end users better. So I'll stop there. and see if there's any questions. And then the question I have for you is, where should this live in the LFDT repo structure? Should it be under .gov or someplace else? And I'll stop for now. Tracy, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, I think once we're in a good spot, it could probably be moved to under the LF Decentralized Trust organization under maybe a repo called contributors. And that
Okay.
way, when we get the github.io site, it would basically be a sister site to /governance, but would be /contributors. That's
Okay.
my suggestion.
I like it. I was having a little semantic problem in my head with putting it under governance, so that actually clarifies. So thank you. And Matthew, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. This looks really good. Really interesting. In terms of after this is rolled out, do you have a view on whether or not the TAC would then come back to this periodically to assess whether or not it's being adopted by projects and how it's being adopted and so on? Maybe part of the project review cycle or something?
Yeah, so it's called the Contributor Ladder Task Force, not the Contributor Site Building Task Force. So I kind of feel like this task force, and I'll just say historically, I belonged in the CNCF, and we had a contributor strategy TAG, I think, or a working group that just lived on and met periodically, maybe once a month, to make sure that the guidance and everything got updated, that feedback was incorporated, but also to sit and think and work on how to create a better community development strategies for the projects, and did a lot of work around metrics as well. So I would suspect that once we get this first project, sort of putting our flag up that we're here to help. And I'm not sure whether under LFDT task force live on like that, but I do think I would like to see like a contributor strategy working group that people can come to, or a regular meeting that I'd happily continue guiding, and then maybe, depending on how the TAC elections go, that in the review of people's quarterly reports, that would be something we would also look at and see where we can help and give feedback. So it's definitely in my thinking of what the contributor ladder group continues to go. I would also suggest that maybe we change it from contributor ladder to contributors. It's a little sexier. And
sorry, my internet
and
just broke up just as you were saying what you were proposing the other term be.
contributor strategy to mimic.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a little, it's just a wee bit more, not, yeah, it's more like, rather than just on the ladder stuff, we also think about how we do outreach, how do we help people understand how to do outreach without heavy lifting from maintainers, how do we incorporate end users better into our conversations and into our projects, along the lines of the adopters work that we've done in the past, but also incorporating them and members of the LFDT organizations, how we do that and turn them all into active contributors to projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if I've got time for one more kind of follow-on question, I guess I'm just going through the Paladin lab becoming a project. So I'm thinking about a lot of these things and putting together our policy for maintainers and so on. How does this fit alongside the more formal maintainer lists and committer lists for a project, do you think? Is it primarily about recognizing contributions and the extent of those contributions and the types of those contributions completely orthogonal to someone's participation as a maintainer of a project who has commit rights on a project? Is it best to think of them as quite orthogonal?
So I'll answer this one way, and maybe I'm not sure I'll answer it correctly for you. So the site is supposed to do two things. It's supposed to, for maintainers, is help maintainers onboard new maintainers, and also to be onboarded themselves. And maybe a third thing, and for projects to have access to templates for like creating the structures for their projects. So maintainer all the .md files that you would have. So in that templates and checklist stuff, that is some stuff for when you're going from labs to this. I would hope that we could also support that role. So I don't think it's orthogonal, like they're not separate things. But one of the things I would ask you to do is look at the site as it is and see what's missing. And it's a good time to do it from Paladin, what else you would like us to have in there. And if we should separate that out for, because I do have a section that's creating a lab versus creating a project. So coming into labs versus donating it directly, an incubated thing. So you'll see that if you search on labs in there, but I don't think I put a section in for when a lab becomes incubated. So that might be an oversight on my part. Tracy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think, you've got the contributors side, people who are new want to come in and participate in a project, figure out how to contribute, what are the kind of things they should be participating in. You've got the maintainer section. There's obviously a lot of governance documents that we already have for maintainers, things like maintainer guidelines, project guidelines, requirements for projects and what they need to do. Those are all part of the governance. I think, part of what was being done in the maintainer section was kind of a way to point people to what exists, because sometimes it's hard to find what already exists. And then also provide some additional, information for maintainers to help them, as Diane said, become maintainers or continue being maintainers. So I do think it's important to recognize all of those different roles that exist within a project, and not duplicate what already exists out there per se, right? But point to what we have. And so I think, part of figuring out what might be missing or that sort of thing might also be just an understanding of what already exists. And then, if it already exists, great, let's point people there. If it doesn't, let's create something that, helps people with that particular thing.
I would just reiterate, this is not about duplicating already existing content. It's about finding a way to direct people to that content and that already exists. There may be some content, though, that may get migrated over in the future, but I think it's about building ladders, and there's lots of different kinds of ladders. Obviously from this conversation, and maybe we need to be explicit about the different personas and in some documentation under the project mandate. And then that might help clarify it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, Diane, because you said something that kind of pulls something out. Right now our governance site is consisting of governing documents, it's consisting of guidelines, it's consisting of member information for the TAC, right? Like these TAC chair notes. At some point it might be worthwhile to explore whether the guidelines stay where they're at or whether they become part of this contributors site, right? Like I think there's a whole lot of things that could potentially be done in different ways, and it's just a question of what makes the most sense for people. Where would they typically go or typically think to go if they were looking for a particular piece of information? And if a guideline is something that they would expect to find in the contributor site, then maybe that's where we need to move it, right? But if the guideline is where we have it today, that's fine too. I think it's just a question of, how do we make this simple for people to discover what they need to discover?
Yep. Well said. Any other questions? So my only ask is, and I think Tracy, earlier you said create a contributor repo, which I think is Ryan and I talked about a little bit about this last week at the meeting. So we probably move that forward and bring it. Do we need a vote about creating a repo? And I'm not going to ask for the vote now, but I'm just in terms of logistics. Can we just
My answer is no.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was gonna be my answer too, right?
Great.
You just tell me where you want it to live and actually file a PR on the governance repo of the proper place, and I'll work with you to make it happen. And if you don't want to do the
Okay.
PR, I'll do the PR. It's fine.
We could talk about it tomorrow. All right. So if everybody could take a peek at it, that's my big ask, and give me feedback. And, you know, with the Paladin project, you're a perfect storm for giving feedback on what's missing and asking for more. So thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Diane. Any other questions or comments for Diane before we move on? All right, Matthew, I think it's up to you for the Project Consistency Task Force.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I can share screen, or there's just the one PR to share, whatever's easiest.
Go for it.
Sure. Bear with me a second. Is that visible to everyone okay?
Yeah, we can see the pull request page.
Great. Right. So yeah. It's been a couple of sessions, a couple of task force sessions we've had to cancel for time off or work trips and so on. But we've had a few of them now. And the next one is tomorrow, and the most recent this is where we've been tracking the meetings and the kind of actions and things. The most recent action I took from earlier in October was to actually start pulling some of these discussions together into a PR for the TAC to review. So I think now there is an initial PR that both people have been participating in the task force, and I think also now potentially the TAC could start taking a look at. What I've tried to do is pull together all the ideas that came out of the task force, along with Peter added a number of comments to the draft PR as well, which I've tried to factor in. And I think so the shape of this is, I think, is quite different to the other task force. The shape of this is likely, I think, to result in a new guidelines document within the governance repository. And I have tried, and those of us discussing this have tried to kind of tread a fine line between not repeating guidelines or content elsewhere, while at the same time trying to provide a useful resource for projects who are looking to be consistent with what else is done, particularly a new project looking to be consistent with what else is done across LFDT projects. And so there's nothing in here that spells out you must do this. This is not that's quite intentional. And there are a number of areas that we have kind of landed on in terms of consistency. I'm not really going to go through them in detail now. I think the point of the PR is for people to kind of review it and add their feedback. But I guess it's in some respects it's slightly softer things. Partly around what's the landing experience in a repository when you first arrive at a repository. How is release tracking and release communication and release planning done? And some other bits and pieces that I think came out of discussions that, as we review this, we might end up deciding, well, these really belong in maybe best practice document over here or somewhere else in our guidelines. So I think what we have is a PR that's ready to have some feedback and some comments. The intention of tomorrow's task force meeting will be to kind of maybe go through it in a bit more detail and see if the discussions we had have been captured here correctly. But yeah, that's really where I think the consistency task force is at the moment. Any questions or comments from anyone else who's been kind of active in the task force before tomorrow's call?
Just thank you for putting together all of our discussions into a more tractable format.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I think we might find that over the next kind of couple of weeks we'll tweak things here and there. But I thought we had enough from everything we discussed to kind of have a strongman proposal for where we think we can add value versus the other guidelines. And hopefully, as others read it, they may have comments on maybe some of it exists elsewhere or belongs elsewhere. My aim has been that nothing in here is particularly covered elsewhere. So that was kind of an initial aim that we didn't start off with a PR that kind of a third of which we kind of felt if we went and dug into the existing guidelines already existed or was already mentioned. So I've aimed to do that. I haven't necessarily exhaustively gone through the rest of the governance repository, but that's been the aim. So I'm hopeful that what we're covering here is kind of additive to what is elsewhere. But there may be places that I've missed where we already talk about some of these things. Okay, I think that's everything from me for today, Tracy.
Okay, great. So the call out for the TAC is to take a look at the pull request. I did put a link in the chat for people to more easily get to that and provide any comments or feedback or additions or anything that you think might be useful. And then obviously there is, as Matthew said, the meeting tomorrow for people to join. So I think we have both task forces have meetings tomorrow. So if you're interested in participating or becoming part of those, please attend. They should be on the calendar. If you don't currently have the calendar invite, you can add yourself to the individual meetings so that they become part of your calendar. Any questions or comments for Matthew? Okay. Thank you, Diane and Matthew, for the updates on the task forces. Obviously, they're still continuing, but they are obviously making progress as well. And seems like we'll be wrapping up shortly based on just this update. So good work on driving people forward and getting the work in place. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring up today or discuss? Okay. So next week I will not be able to attend. Arun has volunteered to run the meeting for us, which is great news. But also as of this moment, I don't have any particular agenda items or topics. So if there is anything that anybody would like to discuss at a deeper level, please do let Arun know. And maybe the other thing that we could look at is what other things we wanted to accomplish this year. And see if there's anything that we can work on to make progress towards those particular goals. So Arun, maybe that could be a topic if nothing else specific comes up, is just going back and looking at our original goals and seeing where we should focus some time, or if there's other issues that have come up this year that we haven't made any progress on but need to work on. That could be something else as a potential topic. But yeah, if there's nothing else for today, I'll pause to see if there is.
Staff did have a question.
Okay, yes, go.
About the implementation on the late reports. Your plan is to implement that should be implemented next year or immediately.
So there were 2 PRs last week that we approved. One was the timing, and then the other one was the kind of change in format for them.
Right.
The change in format we had talked about implementing next year. We never really talked about when we should implement the timing. I suppose we actually have some projects that actually fall into that right now.
And that's why the question came up.
Yeah. So, I don't know, thoughts, TAC members? Any thoughts on whether we want to, you know, start to archive or whatever the step was, dormant, I think move to dormant is what it was, some of the projects that haven't put in their project updates for Q3? Assuming it's been more than the 2 months. Matthew?
I guess I don't know off the top of my head how much communication have we had with those projects in the time that they've been kind of running late.
Arun, you would be best able to answer that question.
So Tracy, Matthew, like most of the communications are via our Discord channel, and for few of those projects, at least in Q2, I tried reaching out via GitHub issues, and I did receive those updates. I did not create those issues for Q3 though.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess it makes sense if that, you know, with the policy that at some point they're may be moved to dormant. I guess it would be good if we give some notice with a fairly clear communication that rather than just asking them to submit them now, we say that you're now at the start of, I don't know, like a month notice on the project being moved to dormant or something like that. So I think if we've not given some clear notice that is going to happen now, then I think it might be worth giving that period of time, because some people will have seen a request for report and maybe not necessarily realize the kind of the ramifications of letting that slip and keep letting it slip. But perhaps that then starts to time up again. I don't know. Maybe it's a few weeks or a month or something. To at least make it clear to them that is the action that's going to be taken if they don't submit it. I don't know what others think about that.
Yeah, so I think if we look at what we have here for overdue reports, the one that currently, so we already archived or moved to dormant, sorry, the Bevel project based on the date. We haven't done anything with Loch Ness. But I think Loch Ness actually put in their Q3 report. If I'm not mistaken, let me just check that. Yeah, so Loch Ness actually did put in their Q3 report. So I think they skipped their Q2 report because it was immediately, by the time they realized that they needed to do it for some reason, Q3 was right upon them, so they skipped that one. So I think the next one that would be in danger would be the trust over IP report, which obviously that's probably going to have its own discussion about moving it to dormant, because that would be a whole kind of thing that would be like a whole, like, I just don't know, that one's a difficult one. And so then October 9th, so that December 9th would be the next kind of time frame that we have for a project that would fall into that. I do think it's probably important, as Matthew said, for us to notify these folks, right, that starting with trust over IP on down, that the next step would be that if they don't have it by the time that, the 2 months is up, that we have implemented this policy and that it would be moved to dormant. And I think that doesn't reach the month kind of time frame for trust over IP, but it does definitely meet the month time frame for these two, right? Identis and Iroha. So yeah, I would say we could go ahead and implement now, but I think Arun, it's probably worthwhile just to reach out directly to these 3 projects and just let them know that this has been a new policy that's been implemented and that it would start to apply with this particular report, the Q3 or the Q4 report.
Sure, Tracy. I would also probably send an email to all the maintainers on their mailing list and Discord channels. I'll do this to all the projects as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. A notification to all projects that this is a new policy. Makes sense. Diane?
I'm wondering, like with trust over IP, if one of us should attend any of the ones that are about to go dormant to make sure that they've read the new policy and maybe present it at one of their top level TSC meetings and get on the agenda. So like really to actively reach out to them, not just send them an email. It would be probably a good way to nudge them, like especially with trust over IP after the last thing, is to start them to be aware and really get this on their radar.
All right.
The emails and the Discords don't seem to be getting that much attention.
Okay. Are you volunteering for trust over IP, Diane?
I would, because I led the last one. I think that's, and unfortunately, I think their meeting is at the same time as this meeting, if I'm looking at the calendar right. But I'm not sure which one of their meetings is. No, that's the trust registry. They have so many meetings. I'm not sure which one is the meeting that is the top level meeting, like their TSC meeting. So if one of the staff can help me, I do that. Or if Arun, you wanted to do it for, yeah, I just need to know which one. I'd like to start the conversation, especially with trust over IP, about this before it blows up.
Yeah, Diane, I can send you the details. I'll ping you on Discord with the call, I think is the right one.
Mm-hmm. And we can just talk about it and then, maybe that, I don't know, maybe I'll just start joining those calls and see if they can, because it's something that I'm interested in too. See if we can move it forward in a positive way.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diane. So maybe then excluding the trust over IP Q3 report, which Diane is going to be stepping in and helping us navigate with trust over IP, maybe the thing that we should say is that the timing definitely applies for all Q4 reports.
Yeah.
Any objections? Staff, does that help? Right, does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, staff, for keeping us honest on this one. All right, any other topics that we should discuss then before we close? Okay, if not, then we can go ahead and close out today's meeting. Again, I won't see you next week, but I will see you in 2 weeks' time. And then I'm pretty sure in 2 weeks' time, we'll have to talk about potentially canceling some meetings, like the one for Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving. And then, like we do all the other times, we'll probably end up canceling some at the end of the year as well. So yeah, with that, I think I'll go ahead and close today's meeting and talk to you all soon.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.